The massive central hall of the Galactic Alliance headquarters buzzed with the noise of 100 different species. Lights from the 3 moons of Centauri Prime shimmered through the crystal dome above. At the far end of the hall, Earth's delegation stood awkwardly in their simple blue uniforms, clearly out of place among the ornate garments of the older spacefaring races. Commander Jack Stone shifted his weight from one foot to another. He had been standing at attention for nearly 2 hours, as speeches droned on in the common galactic language. At 45, Stone was considered young for his position, with short gray-peppered hair and deep lines around his eyes that spoke of years spent squinting at distant stars. "And now," announced the chief ambassador, a tall being with silvery skin, "we welcome our newest members, the humans of Earth, to present their contribution to our combined fleet." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Earth had only joined the Galactic Alliance 3 months ago, after humans had accidentally discovered faster-than-light travel while experimenting with fusion technology. The older races viewed humans as lucky, children who had stumbled onto the galactic stage before they were ready. Stone walked to the central platform with his head held high. Behind him, a large screen activated, showing an image that made several aliens gasp or make sounds of surprise. "I present the Earth Defense Vessel Reclaimer," Stone said proudly, "designated JF007. The ship on the screen looked like it had been assembled by a child playing with mismatched toys. Its hull was clearly made from different metals welded together. One section appeared to be an old Earth satellite repurposed as a sensor array. Another part looked like salvaged pieces from an early moon base. Even the engines seemed to be different models grafted together in a way that defied conventional engineering. Silence filled the hall until a loud, rumbling laugh broke it. Admiral Krell, commander of the Galactic Fleet, stepped forward. Standing nearly 7 feet tall with blue-gray skin and eyes that glowed faintly yellow, Krell was an imposing figure from the warrior race of Torno. His uniform gleamed with medals and honors earned over 3 centuries of service. "You can't be serious," Krell said, his translator barely keeping up with his rumbling voice. "This junkyard collection is your military contribution?" Stone's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice level. "The Reclaimer may not look impressive, Admiral, but she's faster and more adaptable than you might think." "Adaptable?" Krell laughed again, louder this time. Other delegates joined in. "It looks like it would fall apart if it tried to reach half-light speed." Stone had expected mockery. Earth was still new to space travel and resources were limited. They had built what they could with what they had. "Appearances can be deceiving, Admiral." Krell stepped closer, towering over Stone. "Let me be clear, human. The Galactic Alliance has standards. That pile of scrap you call a ship would be a liability in any real conflict. It might be good enough for your primitive solar system, but out here, it's worse than useless." The hall had grown quiet again. The Earth delegation shifted uncomfortably. "Perhaps," Stone said carefully, "you'd allow us to demonstrate the Reclaimer's capabilities." A thin smile spread across Krell's face. "As it happens, the Alliance is conducting war games next month to test our readiness. Originally, we weren't going to invite Earth to participate, as you clearly have nothing to contribute." He gestured toward the screen where the Reclaimer still hung awkwardly in space. "But I'm feeling generous today. Bring your, ship. It will serve as an excellent target for our gunners." Laughter erupted again, louder this time. Stone felt heat rising in his face but kept his expression neutral. "We accept your invitation, Admiral." Krell's smile faltered slightly. He had expected Stone to back down. "Very well, but don't say I didn't warn you when your crew is floating home in escape pods." After the ceremony ended, Stone met with his team in a small room provided for the Earth delegation. The mood was grim. "They laughed at us," said Anna Miller, the Reclaimer's pilot. At 32, she was the youngest senior officer on the crew, with short blonde hair and quick eyes that constantly scanned her surroundings. Before joining Earth's space program, she had been a champion in experimental aircraft racing. "Let them laugh," Stone replied. "It won't matter when they see what we can do." Tom Reed, the ship's chief engineer, scratched his beard thoughtfully, older than Stone by a decade. Reed had spent his life making broken things work. His hands were permanently stained with engine grease. The reclaimer isn't ready for war games, Jack. We're still testing the new power coupling system. Then we'll have to get her ready, Stone said firmly. We have 1 month. With all due respect, sir, said Ben Davis, the science officer. Admiral, Krell wasn't wrong about everything. Tall and thin with careful movements, Davis had been a theoretical physicist before joining the space program. Our ship is built from salvaged parts. Some of the technology is decades old. Stone moved to the window overlooking the spaceport where ships from dozens of worlds sat in neat rows. Among them, looking distinctly out of place, was the reclaimer. In the fading light of the setting suns, its patchwork construction was even more obvious. Do you know why I named her the reclaimer? Stone asked. When no one answered, he continued, because humans have always excelled at taking what others discard and making something new, something unexpected. He turned back to his team. The Galactic Alliance sees us as primitive upstarts who got lucky with faster-than-light travel. They're right that we're behind in technology, but they're wrong about our capabilities. Reed nodded slowly. The modifications I've been working on, they're unconventional, but they might give us an edge. My simulator results suggest we can execute maneuvers their targeting systems won't predict, Miller added, a spark of excitement in her voice. And I've been studying their battle formations, Davis said. They follow patterns they don't even recognize themselves. Stone smiled. This was why he had chosen this crew. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. The Alliance races have been at peace so long they've forgotten how to truly innovate. They follow rules and traditions that are centuries old. He looked at each of them in turn. We have 1 month to turn our pile of scrap into something that will shock the entire Galactic Alliance. Let's get to work. The next morning, as the Earth delegation prepared to return to their ship, a young aide from Admiral Krell's staff approached Stone. Commander, the aide said nervously, Admiral Krell wished me to provide you with the coordinates and protocols for the war games. Stone took the offered data tablet. Thank the Admiral for his consideration. The aide hesitated. He also asked me to remind you that the Alliance will not be responsible for any structural failures your vessel might experience during the exercises. Tell the Admiral not to worry about us, Stone replied. We'll be ready. As the aide hurried away, Stone looked up at the vast ceiling of the spaceport, where ships of all designs moved smoothly through docking procedures. Far above, barely visible against the bright sky, the bulky form of Admiral Krell's flagship, the Dominant, hung in orbit. Laugh all you want, Stone muttered to himself. You won't be laughing for long. The reclaimer hung in Earth's orbit, its patchwork hull gleaming in the sunlight. From a distance, it looked even more like a collection of spare parts than it had on the display screens at the Galactic Alliance headquarters. Up close, the welds and seams between different sections were clearly visible, telling the story of its hurried construction. Inside the ship's main engineering bay, Tom Reed lay on his back beneath an open panel, his face illuminated by the glow of fusion circuits. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he carefully adjusted a connection that no engineering manual would ever recommend. Hand me the pulse shifter, he called out, extending his hand without looking. A woman in a mechanic's jumpsuit, Lisa Wright, placed the tool in his waiting palm. This is crazy, Tom. Mixing Centaurian power couplings with our old fusion tech. It could blow up the whole ship. Reed slid out from under the panel with a grunt. His once white shirt was now smeared with grease and coolant fluid. That's exactly what the Galactic folks would say. That's why they'd never try it. He grinned. And that's why they'll never see it coming. Commander Stone entered the engineering bay, ducking under a low-hanging pipe. The reclaimer had not been designed with comfort in mind, and at least a third of the corridors required tall crew members to stoop. How's it coming, Tom? Stone asked, looking at the mess of wiring and components spread across the floor. Reed wiped his hands on a rag. I've got the hybrid power system working, sort of. We can now channel power between our Earth fusion generators and the Centaurian energy matrices we salvaged from that derelict scout ship. Sort of? Stone raised an eyebrow. Well, it won't. Explode, probably. Reed smiled. But it gives us something unique. The galactic ships all use standardized power systems. They're efficient, stable, and predictable. Ours is none of those things. But it can do something theirs can't. Which is? Reed's eyes lit up with excitement. Pulse shifting. We can create energy fluctuations that will make us appear to be in slightly different positions than we actually are. Their targeting computers will get confused. Stone nodded slowly. How long until it's combat ready? 3 weeks, maybe, if we work around the clock. You have 2, Stone said firmly. The war games start in 29 days and we need time for testing. Reed sighed. I'll need more help then, and parts. You'll have them. Stone turned to leave but stopped. Oh, and Tom, make sure it really won't explode. No promises, Commander. Reed called after him with a chuckle. In the simulator room 2 decks above, Anna Miller sat in a replica of the Reclaimer's cockpit, her hands dancing over the controls. On the screen in front of her, a virtual representation of the ship performed a series of maneuvers that seemed to defy physics. Stone watched from the doorway as the simulated ship spun on its axis while continuing forward momentum, then cut, its engines only to reignite them in a pattern that looked almost random. After a particularly impossible-looking turn, Miller removed her simulator helmet and noticed Stone. Commander, I didn't see you there. What was that last move? Stone asked, pointing to the replay on a secondary screen. I've never seen anything like it. Miller's face lit up. I call it the broken arrow. It only works because of our uneven weight distribution and Tom's adjustable thruster output. She pointed to different parts of the ship diagram. A normal ship would tear itself apart trying this, but the Reclaimer, she's already a bit broken, so she can bend in ways other ships can't. Will it work in actual combat? Miller nodded, confidently. The galactic ships are all designed with perfect balance and symmetry. Their combat computers predict movement based on those principles. They won't know how to target something that moves like it's falling apart. Keep working. On it, Stone said. I want a full set of these unorthodox maneuvers ready for combat drills next week. Yes, sir, Miller replied, already reaching for her helmet to continue practice. Stone made his way to the science lab, where Ben Davis stood before a large display showing recordings of Galactic Fleet exercises. Davis didn't notice Stone enter. He was too focused on the movements of the ships on the screen. Found anything useful? Stone asked. Davis jumped slightly, then adjusted his glasses. Commander, yes, actually. Look at this. He pointed to the formation of ships on the display. The Galactic Fleet has been using the same basic tactics for over 200 years. They value tradition and proven methods. That makes them predictable, Stone observed. Exactly, Davis agreed. They follow patterns they don't even realize are patterns. For instance, their ships always approach in these specific formations. He pulled up another display. And when they attack, they follow standard protocols taught at their academy. Davis tapped a few controls and a simulation began to run, showing how the Reclaimer might exploit these patterns. If we know what they're going to do before they do it, we can position ourselves to surprise them. Stone nodded approvingly. Keep analyzing. I want counter tactics for every standard galactic maneuver. As Stone left the science lab, his communication device beeped. The face of General Harris, Earth's military liaison to the Galactic Alliance, appeared on the small screen. Commander, we have a situation, Harris said without preamble. Our intelligence suggests that Admiral Krell has assigned spies to observe your preparations. Stone frowned. Inside the ship? No, but they're watching from orbit. A small galactic vessel has been stationed just outside Earth's security perimeter. They're scanning your ship. Stone thought for a moment. Let them watch, General. In fact, I have an idea. The next day, Reed directed a team to begin work on the outer hull of the Reclaimer. They attached what appeared to be additional armor plating and new weapon systems. From a distance, it looked like a significant upgrade. Are those real weapons? Stone asked as he and Reed observed the work from a viewport. Reed grinned. They're empty shells. But they look impressive, don't they? Our galactic friends will Waste time analyzing weapons that don't exist while we finish the real modifications inside. Stone clapped Reed on the shoulder. Good thinking. Later that evening, Stone called his senior officers to the ship's small briefing room. The walls were bare metal, unlike the elegant meeting chambers of galactic vessels. We have 25 days left, Stone began. Our galactic friends are watching us, thinking they know what we're doing. Let them think that. Meanwhile, I want each of you to push harder. This isn't just about proving ourselves at the war games anymore. He activated a display showing a classified intelligence report. Our long-range sensors detected unusual activity at the edge of Alliance space. The Galactic Council is ignoring it, but I'm not taking chances. There's a possibility that while we're playing at war, a real threat might be approaching. The room fell silent as the officers processed this information. Are you saying the war games might turn real? Miller asked. Stone's expression was grim. I'm saying we need to be ready for anything. The galactic races have been at peace so long they've forgotten what real danger looks like. We humans haven't had that luxury. He looked at each of his officers in turn. We have 25 days to turn this scrap ship into something that can not only surprise our galactic friends, but possibly save them as well. Let's get to work. As the meeting ended, Stone remained behind, looking at the star chart displaying the mysterious readings at the edge of known space. Something was coming. He could feel it in his bones, the way sailors of old could sense a storm on the horizon. The reclaimer might be a patchwork of salvaged parts, but it was Earth's best hope. And now possibly the Alliance's too, whether they knew it or not. The vast emptiness of space around Jupiter's orbit had been transformed into a bustling hub of activity. Over 200 ships from across the Galactic Alliance hung in precise formation, their sleek designs reflecting the distant sunlight. Among them, looking distinctly out of place, was the Earth vessel Reclaimer. From the command deck of the imposing Dominant, Admiral Krell watched the Earth ship with a mixture of amusement and contempt. Even with its apparent new modifications, the Reclaimer looked like a child's toy next to the massive warships of the main fleet. They actually showed up, Krell remarked to his second-in-command, a tall, thin officer named Mex. I was half expecting them to find an excuse to back out. Humans are known for their stubbornness, Admiral, Mex replied. Though I admit, bringing that heap of metal into a combat exercise shows either great courage or complete foolishness. Krell nodded. Assign them to target practice group. They might as well serve some purpose before they're forced to withdraw. Inside the Reclaimer, Commander Stone and his crew were making final preparations. The ship hummed with an uneven energy that would have alarmed any galactic engineer but felt just right to the humans, who had spent the last month fine-tuning it. All systems are as ready as they'll ever be, Reed reported from his engineering station. His voice carried the weariness of someone who hadn't slept properly in weeks. The hybrid power system is stable. Well, stable enough. Miller sat at the pilot's controls, her fingers dancing across the panel as she ran through pre-maneuver checks. Flight systems responding. All those simulator hours better pay off. They will, Stone assured her. He turned to Davis at the science station. What's our assignment? Davis frowned as he read the incoming transmission. We've been assigned to target practice group, sir. Essentially, we're supposed to act as moving targets for the main fleet's weapons drills. A murmur of discontent spread through the bridge. Crew. Stone's face remained calm. Perfect. They're underestimating us even more than I'd hoped. He opened a ship-wide channel. All hands, this is Commander Stone. The war games begin in 30 minutes. Remember your training, remember why we're here, and remember that every person who laughed at our ship is watching. Let's show them what humans can do. The first exercise was simple. The target practice group would attempt to evade simulated weapons fire from the main fleet for 10 minutes. Any ship hit 3 times would be considered destroyed and would have to withdraw. 5 Alliance ships from minor worlds made up the rest of the target group. They all carried the standard design elements of galactic vessels, smooth lines, perfect symmetry, and conventional propulsion systems. The exercise began with a signal from the Dominant. Immediately, the 5 Alliance ships began evasive maneuvers, following textbook patterns taught at the Galactic Academy. The Reclaimer, however, did nothing. It simply drifted, appearing almost dead in space. "What are they doing?" Krell asked, leaning forward in his command chair. "Have they had a system failure already?" From a tactical station, an officer replied, "Their power readings are fluctuating, Admiral. They may be experiencing problems." Krell smiled. "Target them first. Put them out of their misery." 3 galactic cruisers turned their targeting systems toward the seemingly helpless Earth vessel. The computers calculated the simple trajectory and fired simulated weapons. According to every prediction model, the shots would score direct hits. But, at the last possible second, the Reclaimer's engines flared to life in an erratic pattern. The ship didn't just move, it jerked sideways in a motion that looked like a mechanical failure, but was precisely calculated. All 3 shots missed. On the Reclaimer's bridge, Miller grinned as she executed the maneuver she had practiced hundreds of times in simulation. Broken arrow successful. They missed by a mile. Stone nodded approvingly. "Now show them the falling star." Miller's hands flew over the controls. The Reclaimer suddenly cut all forward thrusters and appeared to tumble end over end. The galactic targeting computers predicted it would continue this tumble and fired accordingly. But Miller fired the port thrusters in a pattern that made no conventional sense. The ship lurched in a completely unexpected direction, evading all incoming fire. On the Dominant, confusion was spreading among the tactical officers. "Sir, we can't get a lock," reported the weapons officer. "Their movements don't follow any recognizable pattern." Krell frowned deeply. "Assign 2 more cruisers to target them. They're just getting lucky." Back on the Reclaimer, Reed was working frantically at his engineering station. "Power fluctuations are within tolerable limits, but the starboard couplings are heating up faster than expected," he reported. "We can maintain this level of maneuvering for another 7 minutes at most." "That's all we need," Stone replied. "Anna, time for the next phase." Miller nodded and initiated a sequence they had called the Phantom Echo. Thanks to Reed's modified power system, the Reclaimer began emitting energy signatures that confused the galactic sensors, making the ship appear to be slightly offset from its actual position. On the Dominant's tactical display, the Reclaimer seemed to split into 2 overlapping images. "What's happening?" Krell demanded. "Is that some kind of sensor malfunction?" The tactical officer shook his head in confusion. "The sensors are working correctly, Admiral. Somehow they're creating a false reading. I've never seen anything like it." Krell's face darkened. "Target both images. Fire everything we have." A barrage of simulated fire headed toward the Reclaimer, enough to destroy any ship 3 times over. But Miller executed a series of impossible maneuvers, while Reed pushed the power system to its limits, creating phantom sensor readings that scattered in different directions. Every shot missed. Davis, monitoring the galactic communications channels, smiled broadly. "Sir, the other ships in our group have all been eliminated, but we haven't taken a single hit. We've lasted the full 10 minutes. A cheer went up from the bridge crew. Stone allowed himself a small smile but raised his hand for quiet. "This is just the first exercise. They'll adapt. Be ready for Phase 2. As the Reclaimer rejoined the fleet formation, communication channels buzzed with chatter about the Earth ship's unexpected performance. Several captains from smaller worlds transmitted messages of congratulations while the major powers remained noticeably silent. Admiral Krell was furious. He paced the bridge of the Dominant, his face flushed a deeper blue than usual. "It was a fluke," he insisted, "a combination of luck and our gunners' complacency. The next exercise will be different." For the second exercise, the fleet was divided into 2 opposing forces for a simulated battle. Naturally, Krell assigned the Reclaimer to the weaker side, commanded by junior officers. The commander of this secondary force, Captain Lorix of the Pleiades systems, initially regarded the Earth ship with skepticism. But after witnessing its performance in the first exercise, he contacted Stone directly. "Commander, your ship's capabilities are unexpected," Lorix admitted. "I would like to incorporate your unique abilities into our battle plan." Stone nodded respectfully. "We would be honored, Captain. We have some suggestions that might surprise the opposing force." When the second exercise began, the main fleet expected a conventional approach from the secondary force. Instead, the reclaimer took point position, using its strange energy signature to confuse the enemy sensors. Behind it, the other ships of the secondary force arranged themselves in a formation that Davis had designed based on his analysis of galactic blind spots. The result was devastating. The reclaimer darted and weaved through the enemy formation, drawing fire and confusing targeting systems. Meanwhile, the ships following in its wake scored hit after hit on the distracted enemy vessels. Within 15 minutes, the exercise was over. The secondary force had achieved a victory that should have been impossible according to all galactic military doctrine. As the ships regrouped for the next exercise, Admiral Krell's voice came over the common channel, tight with barely controlled anger. Attention all vessels. There has been a change to the exercise parameters. For the remaining drills, all ships will use standard galactic maneuvering protocols only. Any unorthodox tactics are now forbidden. Stone exchanged looks with his bridge crew. Reed rolled his eyes while Miller made a rude gesture toward the communication panel that thankfully wasn't being transmitted. "He's changing the rules," Davis said quietly. Stone nodded. "Because we're winning." He opened a channel to respond. "Admiral Krell, Commander Stone here. We respectfully request clarification. The purpose of these exercises is to test combat readiness. In real combat, the enemy won't follow standard protocols." There was a long pause before Krell responded. "The purpose of these exercises is to ensure all Alliance members can function as part of a cohesive fleet. Your improvisations disrupt unit cohesion. Follow the protocols or withdraw from the exercises." Stone muted the channel and turned to his crew. "Options?" Reed shrugged. "We could comply and still do reasonably well. Our ship is more responsive than they realize, even with conventional maneuvers. Or," Miller added with a gleam in her eye, "we could push the boundaries of what counts as standard protocols." Stone smiled slowly. "Let's find out exactly how far those boundaries stretch." The war games continued, and though the reclaimer was now forced to operate within more restricted parameters, it still performed far better than anyone had expected. By the end of the day, several galactic captains had approached Stone to learn more about Earth's shipbuilding techniques. As the fleet prepared to dock at the Jovian station for the night cycle, Stone received an unexpected communication. It was from Captain Lorix. "Commander Stone, your ship and crew have earned my respect. Today, some of us are gathering to discuss tomorrow's exercises. I believe you would have valuable input. Will you join us?" Stone looked around at his tired but proud crew. "It seems we've made some friends after all." Reed grinned. "Better enjoy it while it lasts, Commander. Something tells me Admiral Krell is already planning how to put us in our place tomorrow." Stone nodded. "Let him try." The second day of war games dawned with a tense atmosphere throughout the fleet. The reclaimer's unexpected success had disturbed the comfortable hierarchies of the Galactic Alliance. Junior officers from smaller worlds looked at the Earthship with newfound respect, while the major powers regarded it with suspicion. Commander Stone had spent the previous evening with Captain Lorix and several other officers who had shown interest in the reclaimer's performance. The meeting had been productive, with Stone sharing some of Earth's more conventional tactical innovations while carefully guarding their true secrets. Now, as the fleet prepared for the day's exercises, Stone stood on the reclaimer's bridge feeling cautiously optimistic. Admiral Krell had scheduled a complex simulation involving defense against a hypothetical invasion force, exactly the kind of scenario where the reclaimer's unusual capabilities might shine despite the new restrictions. "All systems nominal," Reed reported from engineering. Dark circles under his eyes betrayed his lack of sleep, but his voice was steady. "I've adjusted the power couplings to run cooler today. We should be able to maintain full maneuverability for up to 20 minutes at a time." Miller nodded from the pilot station. "I've studied the standard protocols all night. There's more flexibility than Krell thinks. We can still surprise them." Davis, however, wasn't listening. He stood hunched over his science station, frowning at the readings on his display. "Commander," he called, "I'm picking up something strange at the edge of our sensor range. Stone moved to his side. Explain. Davis pointed to a series of energy spikes on his display. These readings, they're not part of the exercise. They're coming from beyond Pluto's orbit, from real ships. Ships that aren't broadcasting Alliance identification codes. Stone's expression darkened. Could it be the anomaly our long-range sensors detected a month ago? It matches the pattern, Davis confirmed, but it's much stronger now. Whatever it is, it's getting closer. Stone didn't hesitate. Open a channel to the dominant. After a brief delay, Admiral Krell's face appeared on the communication screen. His expression was one of annoyed impatience. Commander Stone, the exercises begin in 15 minutes. I trust you're ready to follow proper protocols today? Admiral, Stone said, ignoring the jab, our sensors have detected unknown vessels approaching from beyond Pluto's orbit. They're not broadcasting Alliance codes. Krell's expression didn't change. Our sensors show nothing unusual. Perhaps your patchwork technology is malfunctioning. Sir, Stone insisted, we've been tracking an anomaly in this region for over a month. These readings are consistent with— Enough, Krell interrupted. This is clearly an attempt to disrupt today's exercises or to justify more of your unorthodox maneuvers. It won't work. Maintain your position and await further instructions. The communication ended abruptly. Stone stood silent for a moment, then turned to his crew. Continue monitoring those readings, if they are what I think they are. Before he could finish, Davis straightened suddenly. Sir, the readings just intensified dramatically. Multiple objects just dropped out of faster-than-light travel. They're accelerating toward the fleet. Stone didn't waste time trying to contact Krell again. Sound General Quarters. Battle stations. Alarms blared throughout the reclaimer, as the crew rushed to prepare for potential combat. On the main view screen, Davis projected the sensor readings, showing numerous objects approaching rapidly from the outer solar system. Can we identify them? Stone asked. Davis worked frantically at his console. Comparing to all known ship designs, wait, there's a match in the Galactic database. His face paled. Sir, they're Razac vessels. A heavy silence fell over the bridge. The Razac were a hostile species that had waged war against the Galactic Alliance nearly 50 years earlier. According to official reports, they had been contained within their own region of space by an Alliance blockade. Apparently, those reports had been wrong. How many? Stone asked quietly. At least 30 ships, Davis replied. Mostly cruiser class, but I'm detecting 3 dreadnought-sized vessels as well. Stone opened a fleet-wide emergency channel. Attention all Alliance vessels. This is Commander Stone of the Earthship Reclaimer. Our sensors have detected a Razac battle group approaching at high speed. This is not an exercise. Repeat, this is not an exercise. All ships prepare for possible hostile action. For several long seconds, there was no response. Then the communication system exploded with chatter as other ships began picking up the approaching vessels on their own sensors. Admiral Krell's voice cut through the chaos. All ships maintain exercise formation. This is clearly some kind of sensor ghost or malfunction. He was interrupted by a brilliant flash of light as a beam of energy lanced through space, striking one of the outer Alliance cruisers. The ship's shields flared briefly, then collapsed as the vessel broke apart. Stunned silence filled the communication channels, broken only by emergency beacons from the destroyed cruiser. Then chaos erupted. The Galactic fleet, still configured for war games rather than actual combat, scrambled to respond. Ships collided as they tried to turn to face the threat. Weapons powered up slowly, having been set to training levels. They're completely unprepared, Stone murmured. Then, louder, Reed, full power to all systems. Miller, get us clear of this mess. Davis, keep tracking those Razac ships. Find me a pattern. The Reclaimer's engines flared to life, and the ship darted away from the confused mass of Alliance vessels. Unlike the Galactic ships, the Reclaimer had maintained full combat readiness throughout the exercises, partly from caution, partly because its jury-rigged systems couldn't easily be scaled down for training purposes. More energy beams sliced through space as the Razac fleet opened fire. 3 more Alliance ships were hit, their shields failing almost instantly against the powerful weapons. Admiral Krell's voice came over the command channel again, this time lacking its usual arrogance. All vessels, combat formation Delta, priority, is to protect the civilian observation ships. But it was too late for an orderly response. The Alliance ships struggled to form up, their movements hampered by decades of peace and reliance on standard protocols that now failed them in the face of unexpected attack. The Reclaimer, meanwhile, moved with purpose. Stone had Davis analyzing the Razac attack pattern while Miller steered them clear of the main battle. "Sir," Davis called, "I've identified their command ship, the largest dreadnought. It's coordinating their attack formation." Stone studied the tactical display. The Razac ships moved with frightening precision, systematically targeting the largest Alliance vessels first. Already, 2 heavy cruisers had been disabled, and a third was venting atmosphere. "What about their weapons?" Stone asked. "Any weaknesses?" Reed had joined Davis at the science station. "Their energy signatures suggest phase-locked plasma weapons. Very powerful, but—" He paused, thinking. "But they require precise calibration to maintain coherence." "Could we disrupt that calibration?" Stone asked. Reed's eyes lit up. "With our hybrid power system, maybe. If we could get close enough to their command ship and emit a broad-spectrum energy pulse at exactly the right frequency, it would disrupt all their weapons temporarily," Davis finished, catching on to Reed's thinking. "How temporarily?" Stone pressed. "Minutes at most," Reed admitted. "But that might be enough for the Alliance ships to regroup." Stone nodded decisively. "Miller, plot a course to that command ship. Full speed." Miller turned in surprise. "Sir, that would take us straight through the heart of their formation." "Exactly," Stone said grimly. "They won't expect one ship to charge them alone. Reed, prepare your energy pulse. Davis, transmit a message to the Alliance. Tell them to be ready to attack the moment the Razac weapons falter." As the Reclaimer accelerated toward the Razac formation, Admiral Krell's face appeared on the communication screen again. "Stone, what are you doing? Return to formation immediately." "No time to explain, Admiral," Stone replied calmly. "But be ready to attack in approximately 6 minutes." The Reclaimer streaked toward the massive Razac command ship. Along the way, 2 Razac cruisers turned to intercept, firing their energy weapons. But Miller executed a series of the approved maneuvers with such precision and timing that they seemed like entirely different tactics. The Razac shots missed by meters. "Their targeting systems are even more rigid than the Alliance's," Miller reported with a tight smile. "They can't adjust for unorthodox movements." As they closed on the command ship, Reed worked frantically at his station. "I've configured the pulse, but we'll need to get within 5,000 kilometers for it to be effective." Stone nodded. "Davis, open a channel to Captain Lorix." Lorix's concerned face appeared on screen. "Commander Stone, what are you planning?" "Your course is suicidal." "Captain, when we emit our pulse, the Razac weapons will be disrupted, but only briefly. You need to be ready to coordinate a counterattack the moment it happens." Understanding dawned on Lorix's face. The Admiral would never approve this plan. "Then don't tell him," Stone said simply. "Just be ready." As the communication ended, the massive bulk of the Razac command ship filled their view screen. It was an ugly vessel, all sharp angles and protruding weapon arrays, at least 5 times the size of the Reclaimer. "Distance to target?" Stone asked. 8,000 kilometers and closing, Miller reported. "They're firing." A massive energy beam shot from the Razac ship directly toward the Reclaimer. Miller rolled the ship hard to port, barely avoiding the blast. "3 more cruisers moving to cut us off," Davis warned. Stone leaned forward in his chair. "Stay the course, Miller. Reed, stand by with that pulse." 7,000 kilometers, Miller called out. 6,000, they're firing again. This time, the beam grazed the Reclaimer's port side. Alarms blared as emergency force fields activated to contain a hull breach. "Minor damage to decks 3 and 4, a crew member reported. "No casualties." 5,000 kilometers, Miller announced. Reed's hands flew over his controls. "Initiating energy pulse, now." The Reclaimer shuddered as every bit of power was channeled into a single massive burst of energy that expanded outward in all directions. For a brief moment, the space around them seemed to shimmer like heat waves over desert sand. Then the Razac command ship's weapons went dark, followed by those of the surrounding vessels. "It worked," Davis exclaimed. "Their weapons are offline." Stone opened a fleet-wide channel. "All Alliance ships attack now. The Razac weapons are temporarily disabled." For a moment, nothing happened. Then, led by Captain Lorix's cruiser, a group of Alliance ships surged forward, weapons blazing. The Razac vessels, suddenly vulnerable, began to turn away. And in the confusion of that moment, no one noticed as the Reclaimer, its power systems critically strained by the massive energy, pulse drifted directly toward the Razac command ship, trailing debris and venting plasma. The Reclaimer drifted silently toward the massive Razac command ship, its engines dark, emergency lights flickering throughout its corridors. On the bridge, red warning indicators covered nearly every display panel as Reed worked frantically at his engineering station. "Main power is completely drained," he reported, his voice tight with tension. "Backup systems are failing. We've got maybe 5 minutes of life support left." Commander Stone gripped the arms of his command chair as the ship shuddered around him. "Can we restore enough power to change course?" Reed shook his head grimly. "That energy pulse burned out half our systems. We're on a collision course with the Razac ship, and there's nothing we can do about it." Stone's face remained calm despite the dire situation. "Then we make the most of it. Davis, are communications still working?" Davis adjusted controls at his station. "Barely, sir. Short range only. Send a message to Captain Lorix. Tell him our situation and that we need the Alliance fleet to focus their attack on the other Razac vessels. We'll handle the command ship." Miller turned from her useless pilot controls. "Handle it how, exactly?" "We're dead in space." Stone unbuckled his restraints and stood up. "Not yet, we're not." "Reed, is the emergency thruster system still operational?" Reed consulted his displays. "Yes, but those are just for stabilization during repairs. They wouldn't generate enough force to—" He stopped suddenly, understanding dawning on his face. "You want to control our collision?" "Exactly," Stone confirmed. "If we're going to hit them anyway, let's make it count." "Davis, what's the most vulnerable part of a Razac dreadnought?" Davis pulled up schematics on his screen. "According to Alliance records from the previous war, their main reactor housing is located here." He pointed to a section near the rear of the ship. "But our impact alone wouldn't be enough to breach it." Stone turned to Reed. "What if we overloaded our own reactor just before impact?" A heavy silence fell over the bridge as the implications became clear. Reed swallowed hard. "That would create an explosion powerful enough to breach their reactor housing." "But sir, that would mean—" "I know what it means," Stone cut him off. "Begin the preparations, everyone else to the escape pods." No one moved. "That's an order," Stone said firmly. Miller stood up from her station. "With respect, Commander, if someone needs to pilot those emergency thrusters to hit the right spot, it should be me." Davis nodded. "And I'll need to calculate the exact point of impact for maximum effect." Reed crossed his arms. "The reactor overload sequence requires constant adjustment. I'm not leaving either." Stone looked at his senior officers, a mixture of pride and sorrow in his eyes. "And the rest of the crew?" "Already heading for escape pods, sir," Reed confirmed. "But the 4 of us need to stay." Outside the Reclaimer, the battle had turned in the Alliance's favor. With their weapons temporarily disabled by the energy pulse, the Razac ships were vulnerable. Alliance cruisers, now organized into proper combat formation, pressed their advantage, destroying 3 enemy vessels and disabling several more. But the Razac command ship was already beginning to recover. Lights flickered across its hull as systems came back online. "Their weapons will be operational again in less than 2 minutes," Davis warned, checking his sensors. "Then we'd better work fast," Stone said. "Reed, begin the reactor overload sequence." "Miller, use whatever power we have left to adjust our trajectory." "Davis, find me that weak point." As his officers worked, Stone opened a communication channel to the Alliance fleet. Admiral Krell's face appeared on screen, his expression a mixture of anger and amazement. "Stone, what have you done? Your unauthorized actions have—" Saved your fleet, Admiral. Stone interrupted calmly. But the job's not finished. The Razac command ship is recovering. We're on a collision course with it and intend to detonate our reactor on impact. Krell's expression changed to one of shock. That's suicide. It's necessary, Stone replied. But I need you to ensure it's not wasted. Once we hit, there will be a massive explosion. That's your chance to finish them off. He leaned closer to the screen. Don't waste it, Admiral. After a moment of silence, Krell nodded solemnly. We won't, Commander. He hesitated, then added, It seems I misjudged your ship and your people. A common mistake, Stone said with a small smile. Stone out. As the communication ended, Reed called from his station. Reactor overload sequence initiated. We've got 3 minutes until critical mass. Davis looked up from his calculations. I've found the optimal impact point, sending coordinates to Miller now. Miller's hands moved over the emergency thruster. Controls. Adjusting course, we'll only get one shot at this. The reclaimer trembled as small thrusters fired in sequence, gradually altering its trajectory toward a specific point on the massive Razac vessel, which now loomed large on their view screen. 2 minutes to critical mass, Reed announced. The ship's temperature was rising as the reactor moved toward overload. Stone opened the internal communication system. This is Commander Stone to any remaining crew. Final evacuation order. Get to escape pods immediately. He paused, then added, It has been my highest honor to serve with you all. Across the ship, the few remaining crew members raced to the escape pods. On the bridge, Stone and his senior officers worked at their stations, sweat beading on their foreheads as the temperature continued to climb. 1 minute 30 seconds to critical mass, Reed reported. Warning alarms blared throughout the ship. Miller wiped sweat from her eyes. Course locked in. Impact in 1 minute 45 seconds. Stone nodded. Perfect timing. He looked around at his bridge crew one last time. I won't order you to stay until impact. Take the last escape pod. Davis looked up from his station. Too late for that, sir. The last pod just launched. Reed checked his display. Besides, someone needs to make final adjustments to the reactor timing. Miller smiled grimly. And someone needs to keep us on course if those emergency thrusters falter. Stone nodded, a lump in his throat. Then we finish this together. On the Dominant, Admiral Krell watched the reclaimers approach on his tactical display. All ships prepare to concentrate fire on the Razac command ship the moment the Earth vessel impacts, he ordered. Then, more quietly to his second-in-command. Record this. The Alliance should remember what happens here today. The reclaimer closed the final distance to the Razac ship, its hull creaking under the strain of the overloading reactor. Temperatures on the bridge had become nearly unbearable, but Stone and his officers remained at their posts. 30 seconds to critical mass, Reed called out, his voice hoarse. Reactor containment failing. Impact in 25 seconds, Miller reported, her hand steady on the thruster controls despite the heat. Stone opened a final communication channel to the Alliance fleet. This is Commander Stone of the Earth vessel Reclaimer. We are about to impact the Razac command ship. Stand ready to exploit the breach we create. He paused, then added, Remember JF007. Davis looked up from his station, confusion on his sweat-streaked face. JF007? I thought our designation was just JF007. Stone smiled. It was. But from today forward, it'll mean something else. Just fixed 007 enemies. Seemed fitting. A small laugh escaped from Miller despite the dire situation. Not bad, Commander. 15 seconds to critical mass, Reed announced. The ship's structure was beginning to warp from the heat. Impact in 10 seconds, Miller called. 9, 8. As the countdown continued, Stone stood tall in the center of his bridge. It's been an honor, he said simply. 3, 2, 1. Impact. The reclaimer slammed into the precise weak point of the Razac command ship. For a split second, nothing happened. Then, as the Earth vessel's reactor reached critical mass, a blinding explosion erupted, tearing through both ships and creating a massive breach in the Razac vessel's reactor housing. A chain reaction followed, as the Razac's much larger power core destabilized. The explosion expanded outward, engulfing both ships in a sphere of energy that lit up space like a newborn star. From the Dominant, Admiral Krell watched in awe. Then, recovering his composure, he barked, "All ships, attack now! Concentrate all, fire on the breach." The Alliance fleet responded immediately, pouring weapons fire into the damaged section of the Razac command ship. Without their flagship's coordination, and with their own systems still recovering from the energy pulse, the remaining Razac vessels began to break formation. Within minutes, it was over. The Razac command ship broke apart in a final, spectacular explosion. Seeing their flagship destroyed, the remaining enemy vessels turned and fled, jumping to faster-than-light travel as soon as they were clear. As the debris field from the twin explosions began to disperse, a small object caught the attention of a sensor operator on the Dominant. "Admiral," the officer called out, "I'm detecting a small cluster of escape pods among the debris." Krell leaned forward. "Razac survivors?" "No, sir. They're from the Earth ship." Hope surged through the bridge. "Life signs?" The sensor operator worked his controls, then looked up with a smile. "Multiple life signs, Admiral, including..." "Yes. Confirming identification now. Commander Stone and his senior officers." A cheer erupted across the Dominant's bridge, spreading quickly throughout the fleet as the news was relayed. Hours later, in the medical bay of the Dominant, Stone lay on a treatment bed, bandaged but very much alive. Around him, Reed, Miller, and Davis occupied similar beds, all being treated for burns and radiation exposure. "How?" Stone asked weakly as Admiral Krell entered the room. "We were still on the bridge at impact." Krell approached, standing tall but with a new respect in his eyes. "It seems your ship had one final surprise. The emergency teleportation system activated automatically, targeting the nearest escape pod. Apparently it was a feature your engineer added without logging it in your ship's official specifications." Reed grinned from his bed. "Thought it might come in handy someday." Krell shook his head in amazement. "Your scrap ship and its unorthodox modifications saved the entire fleet today." He straightened formally. "The Alliance Council has met in emergency session. They voted unanimously to reclassify the JF007 designation. It will now be an honor given to ships that show exceptional innovation in the face of overwhelming odds." Stone tried to sit up, but winced in pain. "And what does JF007 stand for, officially now?" Krell actually smiled. "Judgment Force 007. Though I've heard some captains already using your own interpretation instead." 1 week later, at an official ceremony aboard the repaired Alliance station, Stone and his crew stood at attention as medals were pinned to their uniforms. The entire surviving crew of the Reclaimer was there, all recovered from their injuries. Admiral Krell addressed the assembled Alliance representatives. "The victory we celebrate today came at great cost, but would have been impossible without the courage and ingenuity of Earth's vessel." He turned to Stone. "Commander, the Alliance has approved resources for Earth to build a new ship, one incorporating both our advanced technology and your creative modifications." Stone nodded gratefully. "Thank you, Admiral. What will this new ship be called?" Krell handed him a data pad showing the specifications for a vessel unlike any in the fleet. Part galactic precision, part Earth improvisation. "The Alliance Council thought that decision should be yours, Commander." Stone looked at the design, then at his crew and smiled. "We'll call her the Phoenix, but her designation will remain JF007. As applause filled the hall, Reed leaned closer to Stone. "Not bad for a pile of scrap, eh, Commander?" Stone watched as galactic engineers studied diagrams of the Reclaimer's hybrid systems, already incorporating the lessons into new designs. "Not bad at all," he agreed. "Sometimes the best ships aren't the ones that look perfect. They're the ones that can surprise you when it matters most."